Good morning, Pooja.
Welcome to
Morning,
Surat
sir.
branch.
Hi, Ashwin. How are you?
How have you been, sir?
Good. How is lockdown being for you?
Very good, sir.
Very good. क्या बात
Yes, sir.
है यार.
सीए लोगों ने इतना आराम एक साथ नहीं किया ना।
आराम किया कि बहुत काम किया?
कुछ प्रोडक्टिव काम ही किया,
आराम से
सर.
काम किया। आराम से काम किया।
आराम से काम किया. That is a good one. आराम से काम किया. That's true.
सर कितने देर में स्टार्ट करें?
I'm ready when you guys are
शुरू
ready.
कर लेते हैं।
हाँ. बालकृष्ण कोई आ रहे हैं? Who all are there?
वही देख रही हूँ।
No problem.
बालकृष्ण सर ने कहा था मैं ज्वाइन करूंगा।
आराम से कोई.
I'll be there.
क्यों नहीं आ रहा?
Good morning, बालकृष्ण सर। अश्विन
Yes.
अनिल सर, बालकृष्ण सर।
बालकृष्ण, good morning.
हेलो अश्विन, अनिल सर
Yes,
ज्वाइन
sir.
कर लिया क्या अनिल सर ने? यस,
Yes,
वेलकम
sir.
अनिल सर, गुड मॉर्निंग।
Well, thank you, बालकृष्ण. How are you? आवाज आ रही है हमारी?
यस सर, बिल्कुल आ रही है।
Yes, sir. आ रही है, क्लियर है.
ओके.
मैडम स्टार्ट करें?
हाँ। Good morning, everyone. I, on behalf of Surat branch of WH of ICI, welcomes our today's honorable speaker, C. Anil Bhandari sir, RCM Balkishan sir, my co-coordinator, Sri Aswin Bawala, and all the participants over virtual platform. Today, our honorable speaker will enlighten us with his wisdom on new trends in technology, accounting, and auditing. He has in-depth knowledge on latest technologies and its usefulness in our day-to-day practice. Before we go forward, I would request our RCM sir to share his words of wisdom with our members. Over to you, Balkishan sir.
Balkishan sir.
Balkishan, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have to speak. Actually, some network problem is there, I think. Hello.
हाँ sir.
Yes, sir.
Ashwin, अपन चालू कर देते हैं. Balkishan will join us then if he is having problem.
Yes sir.
Yeah, members have already joined, no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I request C. Ashwin Bawala to give a formal introduction of our honorable speaker.
Thank you, Pooja madam. Let me give a brief introduction of our today's speaker. Mr. Anil Bhandari is a fellow member of ICI. He has completed his graduation from the Mumbai University and he is an alumnus of the prestigious Narsi Munji College of Commerce and Economics. He is also a cost accountant, certified internal auditor from the Institute of Internal Auditors Incorporation, Florida, and certified information system auditor from Isaka, USA. He started his career in management consulting. He has contributed to several associations and forums and has been part of various national and international committees on technology, risk management, and internal audit. He is now recognized as a thought leader in the subjects of information risk management, internal audits, and regulatory compliances. He has contributed as an honorary advisor to regulators such as the Reserve Bank of India and TRAI on matters pertaining to risk and compliance. He leads a team of more than 700 professionals and heads clients relationship for various institutions and corporations such as RBI, CCIL, Bharti Airtel, Tata Group, Vodafone, Wipro, UBS, ICICI Bank, Citigroup, to name a few. He is an ardent speaker and has been invited to speak at various national and international conferences. He has given various keynote speeches in Singapore, Japan, Israel, Philippines on various topics pertaining to cybersecurity. He is the past chairman of WIRC of ICI. He has been elected to the 23rd Central Council of ICI, wherein he was the chairman of Digital Transformation Committee, Internal Audit Standards Board, members in Industry Committee, and vice chairman of National Economic Advisory Committee. He has been contributing to the digital journey at ICI. He now serves as the chairman of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Committee and leads the ERP project at ICI. Now, not taking much of your time, I would hand over to our today's speaker. Please, sir, over to you.
Well, very good morning to all our members, and thank you, Ashwin and Pooja and Balkishan, for inviting me to speak to our very young, dynamic, and very entrepreneurial members in Surat. It's always a pleasure to come and speak at Surat. I would have preferred to do a face one-on-one, which I'm sure we'll get an opportunity very, very soon. Hoping that we come out of pandemic very soon. I hope all of you are safe and all family members are safe, and we are now moving towards hopefully a good next quarter with vaccine coming out. The topic today given to me is to talk about emerging trends in businesses. Actually, emerging trends in businesses are very important to understand because that becomes the foundation of what we chartered accountants do. And we have to always build our professional services or practices on top of these emerging trends in businesses. So I think given the pandemic, given that everything has moved to technology, and given the fact that I have technology at the core of my heart, I would, of course, talk to you about some really interesting emerging trends coming up in the world today. And these trends are not defined by me, of course, but these trends are defined by experts all across the world, and especially a lot of government organizations and so on and so forth. So it's very important for one to understand these trends in detail within each industry. Now, all of us are chartered accountants. We understand business processes. We understand industries very well. And if you understand and deep dive into industries, you would be amazed to find the kind of opportunity that now all of these trends together or individually will bring to your table. So let me try and share with you a presentation that I have kind of collated and try and explain to you these trends coming in. I'm not sure how you work on questions and answers, but I think I'm pretty happy to take any question. If you would raise your hand electronically, I think we could unmute you, or you could unmute yourself, and we could probably take questions if that's visible and it works here on this platform. So I would just take a minute to share my screen. Yeah. So I hope my screen is visible, Pooja.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay. So the screen says digital 2025. Of course, we are not at 2025. We are at 2021, interestingly. But these trends talk about the next 3 to 4 years of what is expected to come. And I have kind of tried and envisaged this up to 2025. And some of them are really, really interesting. So let's see what they are. Of course, all of us have been through this COVID situation. So interestingly, everything is now work from home. All of us are actually working from home. Could you have ever imagined that we would all be sitting at home, trains would be closed, countries would be closed, and still we would be working, and still clients would be paying us money, and still we'll be paying salaries? I could not imagine. I'm not sure if anybody here today would have ever imagined that something like this would happen. While something like this could happen, but we would still continue our normal lives, and we would still kind of make the same kind of money and also pay salaries, is something that I never imagined in my life, especially with the world coming to a halt. Learn from home. Of course, students have been learning from home, and education and the way that you deliver content and education has gone through a complete change. I'm not sure if anyone here would have attended a couple of sessions that I would have taken in Surat before. In the last 2 years, I've always been saying that education is one area which will go through a 360-degree curve in the way that you teach, in the way that you deliver, in the way that you even take your exams. And it's going to become more and more intuitive, which means, how we learn our languages when we are born. Nobody teaches us. We actually fall down, get up. And by doing all of that, we learn our languages, and we never forget those languages. And that's how education would eventually be. It is skill which is important, not degree, I keep saying. So you will do a lot of skill learning in the future. And of course, we are all earning from home. Now, the point is also not all of this. Maybe, yes, the technology enables us. But the interesting point is billions of users are doing it. Billions of users. Can you imagine the size of technology stack which would be available all across the world to enable not 1 billion people, not 2 billion people, but 7 billion people to log on and to do something or the other purely on a virtual access? I'm not sure if anybody here remembers. I would have asked a question as to in one of our risk management programs, who competes with, for example, Vistara Airlines, and who competes with airlines, and the immediate response would have been a Jet Airways, for example, used to compete with Vistara, or an Indigo competes with Vistara. And I used to smile and say that, look, airlines don't compete with airlines. It is actually the airlines are likely to compete with video conferencing softwares. And people used to kind of smile at me that how would a video conferencing software compete with an airline? Now, here is the world. Suddenly, we realize that everything in the world has come to a grinding halt. The airports have come to a grinding halt. And the airline companies are nearly close to have been destroyed. Of course, they've started to operate again. But you have the Zoom and the WebExes and the Teams of the world. And interestingly, the valuation of Zoom, which was just close to 8 or 9 billion, maybe 1.5 years back, last April that I looked at, last April, I think it might be even close to 100 billion today. But last April I looked at 2020, it was $45 billion immediately when pandemic hit it. $45 billion. All airline companies put together across the world will not be $45 billion to my mind. And can you imagine? They don't even have a parking lot. They don't even have aircraft. They don't even have pilots. But they have still transported, and they are still continuing to transport as we speak, more than 300 million people all across the world. Can you imagine if there is a little bit of virtual reality and a little bit of augmented reality that you put into this virtual conferencing softwares? You would actually feel that I'm sitting on a nice a table close to you, and we are actually in a nice room and interacting with everybody, looking at your faces and expressions and all of that. Is that too far? I don't think it's too far. The technology is already there. So just as I said that what competes with airlines is actually not airlines. Unfortunately, in the world today, what's happening is that the conventional competition is completely moving out. The way that we compete conventionally is completely moving out, which means the competition is with something else, and we don't even realize that. Now, just to ask you this question in a different manner, whom do you think is likely to compete with you personally, individuals like you and me? Whom do you think is likely to compete with us? Most of the time, when we become a chartered accountant and we go to offices, we mostly believe that our colleagues are competing with us. My friend is competing, he gets 10 lakh rupees of salary, he does a practice of maybe 50 lakh rupees, and we keep competing and comparing between ourselves. But in the next 5 or 10 years, I must tell you this, that it's not going to be people competing people. It's not going to be you competing your friends. It will be you competing against simple robotics and then evolved robotics after 10 years. In the very near future, which is just 4 or 5 years from now, you would actually be competing against simple robots and bots. And these robots and bots would have artificial intelligence, maybe very simple artificial intelligence to start with, to be able to build, and they would able to take away and build a lot of jobs, because everything which is repetitive is likely to be killed in the next 5 years. So I think we should always remember that competition does not come from what you think is likely to come from. Competition does not come from people or companies doing similar things, no longer today. So, for example, a bank today thinks that the banks were competing with banks. Suddenly, they realize that they are not competing with banks, but they have started to compete with fintech companies, which have no assets, which don't even have licenses. ICICI Bank, for example, for payments competes with Paytm, which is larger. A telecom company does not compete with telecom. So this has become a normal norm today. And you should always imagine this when you're either providing consulting or you're doing anything for an industry. And you should always look out for disruption, because you would suddenly feel that competition is somewhere else. Just to give you another example, we used to have a lot of marbles coming out of our country, good marbles that we put at home. And the marble companies used to compete with the marble companies. And suddenly you realize that the tile companies in Japan are producing tiles which are very similar to marble. So things change very, very quickly. Let me now try and take you to the emerging trends which are coming out. So I'm not sure if anybody here has heard about this, but there are three trends emerging in the world. The first trend which is emerging in the world is an outcome-based business model. Outcome-based. As chartered accountants, you would realize, and I'm sure you would know what an outcome-based business model is. An outcome-based business model is something where you are doing success for people, and the success is achieved, and of course, you're paid for that success. Similarly, an outcome-based business model in all of the industries is likely to be available. And these outcome-based models within the industries are likely to be very, very interesting going forward. So let me try and take a few examples of the outcome-based business model. You and we are both, all of us are very aware about very interesting cars which come out in the market. We have always been buying cars because the cars have been faster, the cars have been smoother, or maybe the car looks good, maybe a BMW. And Surat, all are very rich. So you would either buy BMWs or Mercedes Benzes, and they would all look good, and you would buy in tens or twenties or hundreds. But today, at least internationally, people are not looking at car in that option. People want the car to talk. They want to enable outcome, experience, such as personalized apps to help electric car drivers minimize their electricity bill. That is one outcome that people are looking at. In a banking, people are not looking at a normal banking any longer. They want greater security, they want predictive services, enhanced wealth creation. Payment platforms are likely to emerge as themes in personal finance. All of us are looking at connected homes. In connected homes, earlier it was a gimmick that you connect your cameras, you connect to your bells, your washing machines get connected, your fridges get connected. But eventually, it's going to be outcome, which is entertainment, our diaries, budgeting, all becoming possible with new advances in connected home. And so is the case with education, so is the case with healthcare. Interestingly, in healthcare, digital is expected to have a profound impact, enabling shift from population-based diagnostic to prescription to those certified on individuals. So centered on individuals. So this is all going to be individual centric, and it's not going to be population centric. And of course, you have retail where you have personal experiences. So this model, outcome-based business model, is becoming the key in the world. And always remember, as chartered accountants and consultants, outcome pays you more money than your normal practices or the normal way that you bill. And this outcome-based analysis, of course, data analytics would come out to be one very interesting trend in an outcome-based model. The second fundamental business outcome coming in is hyper-personalization. I'm not sure if you would have been familiar with this term of hyper-personalization. What it really means is, a company like Nike, you could actually log on and create a customized shoes, and you can have a customized Nike shoes for the same amount of money that you pay in the Nike store today. You could have customize a drink for you and order it. Can you imagine you going to a Zomato and saying, I want to order a Coke, or I want to order a cola, or I want to order a thumbs up, but I want to order a thumbs up which is a slightly more sweeter, or it has got more fizz, or maybe you like a cola and you may like it with a little more fizz, and all of that is going to be possible. And so, of course, you can create your own suits and so on and so forth. The interesting part coming here is, for example, music. Can you tailor music to your themes? As you listen to music on different apps, and as you listen to music on YouTube, what's happening is that organizations are collecting enough information about your likes. And if something that you hear more, or something that you hear more often, and some track of the music that you continuously like, or some I don't know, I'm not a music expert, but I'm saying a lyric or the element in that, they would eventually come out and say, hey, you know what? Just like Just like an iPhone, for example, comes out with some photographs, they'll say, hey, we've composed a music for you. Would you like to listen to this music? This music is tailored to what you listen. So such is an important area that music is likely to go through a transformation. Similarly, there are other, of course, areas where there is hyper personalization. So what I'm trying to say is that hyper personalization, personalizing something for delivery, is also likely to become very, very interesting. The third model, which is set in the world today, and this is something that all of us should understand or will understand, is access versus ownership. You want to access an asset, you don't want to own it any longer. For example, if you want to, there are a lot of people in Bombay who have good salaries. They don't want to buy houses, they want to enjoy a good house, because they're saying that the rent is only 5% of the value of the house, which means I can still put my money on FD and I can still utilize a great house and I can keep changing it. Earlier the trend was that I want to buy a house and I want to live in it for life. Today that's not the trend. Today the trend is I want to keep enjoying different assets. How is that possible? You cannot keep buying houses every year, because when you do that there is a lot of demurrages. So you could enjoy access. Similarly, in the world today, all of us have heard cloud, and cloud is nothing but access rather than ownership. You don't want to own a Microsoft product, you just want to use it. You don't want to own an ERP product, you just want to use it. So similarly, if you look at accommodation, which is a very cracking example of this, is that Airbnb does not have hotels, but it still runs a large hotel. It's valued at more than, I don't know, maybe it was what, $100 billion. They just got listed, man. And can you imagine the size of the valuation? Hilton hotels, Taj hotels, they don't even have that kind of size of valuation. So accommodation, where this company does not own anything but gives you access to whatever you like to do. This is a very interesting business model. Luxury apparel in India will become a big business model, because we spend a lot of money on our weddings. And typically you buy a dress for a lakh of rupees or 2 lakh rupees, and maybe in Surat, since you're all rich, you may end up buying for something for 5 lakh rupees for your sister's wedding or brother's wedding or your own wedding. Why do you want to do that if you just want to enjoy a Sabyasachi or something for just one day? Why would you want to spend that kind of money? Even after maybe 3 or 4 years, anyway, that dress would not fit you. So this is something which is interesting. This is something which is interesting. In the US, and even today, in a lot of hospitals, all hospitals are not able to buy the same machines because the machines would be expensive. So in the US, there's a company called Cohilo. What it does is it buys the most expensive machines and starts moving it around to hospitals. And then they provide it on rent. And literally, they have saved a lot of money and a lot of people in doing that. So this is another business trend which is coming up. So again, I think fundamentally, to try and summarize this, you have outcome-based business model, very, very important for us to remember. You have hyper-personalization, very, very important for all of us to remember. And you have access rather than ownership, which is also very, very important for all of us to remember. If you remember these three fundamental models which are likely to come in the world, you would be able to build your professional services or even your businesses if you're an entrepreneur around this model. Let me take you to another fundamental area, which is collaboration. That is something that we chartered accountants, unfortunately, don't really understand it very, very well. We are very individualistic. We would want to run our own practices. We have our own set of mind, and we try to recreate the same thing that our friends or other members would have recreated. And we take as many number of years to recreate the same problem. What the world is saying is, do not reinvent the wheel. Partner with the expert who have a competitive edge. A team effort across industry is necessary. This is what saves the day. That is what makes life interesting. So I think collaboration is something that you should always, always remember, because you want to move in the life fast, because you don't have all the time in the world, and time is of essence, and you don't want to enjoy your life after you're 60 or 70. You actually want to enjoy your life. You actually want to enjoy your car today, the moment you've got out of your schools, colleges, The moment you become a chartered accountant, you want a great life, you want to travel the world. That would mean that you need to do collaboration, work on top of it, and become a little smarter and work smarter. Now, if all of this is likely to come, of course, there is likely to be a very strong impact on employment. And this is something that we should remember. Sustainability and trust. All of three are important. Why employment? It is saying that current estimates of the global job losses due to digitalization range from widely 2 million to 2 billion people by 2030. By 2030, around almost 2 billion people could end up losing a job. Why? Because the skill that they have today don't marry with the skill of the future, which means that you become a chartered accountant does not help you. What helps you is to keep challenging yourself and keep acquiring new skills. Sustainability and global sustainability is likely to be very, very important. And that is why I think the Institute is also coming out with a sustainability framework, and even the IFAC is looking at a sustainability framework in whatever companies and large organizations do. Now, trust is likely to become the most important because there is so much of digitalization, there is so much of social media, user generated websites, and other innovations. It is important that all of this has to have trust. Today, when you look at a news, either on a Google or a Facebook, you kind of start developing trust, but then you realize or remember that it's a fake news, for example. On a WhatsApp, for example, there are fake news is coming up, and we would have seen that in the Institute for our students. So always remember trust, cybersecurity, access control, technology, systems audit is likely to become very, very important. All our practices are likely to drive towards trying to establish trust in whatever the business process is doing. Try and summarize some key technologies which are likely to come up, and then I would take some of your time taking you through some industries and some nuances of different industries. The key technologies that are likely to emerge is, of course, artificial intelligence, and all of us are aware about artificial intelligence. All of us have heard about artificial intelligence, and a lot of us think that this artificial intelligence is very complex. But believe me, artificial intelligence is not so complex. Artificial intelligence happens out of unstructured data. Unstructured data means data in bits and bytes, and it has no relationship. So the algorithm learns something. Artificial intelligence comes out of structured data, which means the data is really structured, digitally possible to read it. Artificial intelligence comes out of unsupervised data. Unsupervised data means the data just keeps coming, nobody's supervising it, nobody's correcting it. At artificial intelligence, you have another algorithm which is supervised data. That means a human being is saying that this machine, which is actually trying to read the algorithm, is actually wrong because this is what is right. So then the algorithm learns from supervised data. Like this, there are a lot of algorithms which are coming in, and there is one algorithm which is, it's called, it tries and tests it. What it means is it keeps looking at try and test, try and test, try and test, which means if there's a failure which comes in, it keeps learning. So all of these algorithms are trying to learn from the huge amount of data that you have. And eventually they would become stronger in taking a decision because they would have large amounts of data, which a machine can comprehend, but a human being may not be able to comprehend. So I think artificial intelligence initially would become a very simplistic way of doing your jobs, repetitive jobs quickly. But in the future, it could actually do a lot of decision making for you. But of course, it doesn't mean that it's the end of the world for us. They could do the routine decision making and we could do the complex decision making because our minds are far more complex than the computer systems that any world has seen today. You have autonomous vehicles, you have big data analytics and cloud. This is an area which us chartered accountants should really try and capture and understand. How do you make sense of big data in the cloud, where data analytics is a very interesting element of somebody who's really keen to move out and churn data. And you know what? Today we have learned that to do all of this and acquire all of the skills, you don't have to be in Mumbai, New York, London. You could be sitting out in Surat. You could be understanding this very well, and you could still be delivering some great service to all the companies across the world. 3D printing and manufacturing is likely to be very interesting. You can actually construct a house in like 24 hours. Internet of Things is going to take away a lot of this pain, and your houses are likely to be connected, your factories are likely to be connected and talk to each other. which means if your factory says that I don't have the raw material, there would be a sensor which will talk to a factory next door or maybe 100 miles to say, hey, you know what, start producing this raw material, because 7 days later, this raw material is not going to be available in this factory. Today, there is a lot of Excel sheets that you do, convert them into something, and then try and put them together, and then try and raise an order of somebody, and there's always a delay and stuff like that. And then you could even have robots and drones just picking up the inventory if they are small items, some very specialized equipment items, and deliver it to your factory very quickly, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, the social media platforms. Let me talk to you quickly about aviation and a couple of industries, of course. Let me talk to you quickly about aviation, travel, and tourism. There is likely to be, again, a fundamental change in the way that aviation industry works. You have seen that today. Aviation industry was literally in a pain. Travel and tourism was in a pain. It was completely shut down. But in the future, you're going to have a living travel experience come into, how do I put it? Uh, in the future, the technology would be so smart that, for example, if you're traveling for work to Delhi, and you've kind of visited some places in Delhi before, you've done something in Delhi before, or you're kind of going for a trip to Kashmir for work, they would push something to say that, hey, can I build in the travel experience as a part of your daily maybe work experience, and can I make you see or do or stay at some places which will really give you a great experience, but for the same amount of money that you would put maybe, for example, staying in a normal hotel. So enabling ecosystem, we all know today that travel agents are a history, because everything that you do in terms of travel booking is right in front of you. Digital enterprise, safety and security, so much of data going around. Data privacy of travelers will become very, very crucial. So this is also a very interesting area for all of us to look at. Now, here is the end-to-end proposition. So what it says is, in the aviation, travel, and tourism, all would be connected. Even today, they are some way connected. But in the future, if somebody is offering you an experience, he will have a connected element of aviation, travel, and tourism, which means end-to-end propositions are starting to overhaul the traditional methods, is what this is a World Economic Report, for example. This is not written by me. And this would be created based on the past travel preferences. And even before starting a search for airfares or accommodation, you would actually get a push with all of this built into you, with all of this built into it, and you'll start getting a push. That's going to become, again, a very living travel kind of an experience. And it would unlock almost $1 trillion worth of value. Can you imagine $1 trillion worth of value? Mining metals is, again, very, very interesting. You have robotics and you have operational hardware. When people get into mines, you're actually literally getting maybe 200 feet, 500 feet below the surface, and you don't even know what is there. But then you're now going to have digitally enabled hardware. You're going to have human controlled machinery sitting from outside. All of this is going to become very interesting. So your entire workforce is going to be digitally enabled, and you could be connected at any point in time. In fact, something that you wear, for example, the workers could be wearing something which should be connected with tools and technologies in the knock, which is sitting on the top. And you would have integrated enterprise platforms and next generation analytics and decision making again. So what's going to happen in mining and metals? Connected workers technologies have numerous applications in the industry. For instance, equipping workers with connected intelligent wearables and mobile devices allows mine and plant management to capture critical information in real time. Can you imagine this? If this is available at any point in time, your entire mining sector goes for again a 360-degree revolution. And again, the value which is likely to be unlocked because of this is going to be $400 billion, because you're hitting the right resources at the right time. You have less death rates. You know where to dig, where not to dig, and so on and so forth. This is a very interesting one that somebody has said. Our aging workers, of course, you have senior workers, and our young guys, they know digital. Our combination works very well, and that's what I was saying. That collaboration is always will bring stellar results, very interesting results. I'm not sure if this is becoming slightly heavy for you guys. I will just stop sharing this. If you have any questions so far, happy to respond. To anybody having any questions, I have got a couple of more examples on industries coming up. And then, of course, for 10 or 15 minutes, you can talk about 10 or 15 minutes, we can talk about what is the likely change in auditing trends or accounting trends, for example. Anybody has any questions? Pooja, do we enable questions here or no?
Let's continue. We'll take the questions at the end.
Okay, cool. Okay. So I hope you see my screen again. Are you able to see this, Pooja?
Yes, sir.
Lovely. So how is telecommunication industry changing? I have said this before again, if you would have heard me, that if you go and look at Reliance Industries' balance sheet, you will realize that telecommunications business is no longer a business of voice or data, even data. It's no longer a business of data. It is actually becoming a content business because Reliance Industries has bought almost all content creation companies in the country. And so is what AT&T has done abroad. Even AT&T has done under a very similar task. They bought a lot of content creation companies. So the telecommunication of the future will be the network of the future, which will be smart pipes. You know, the wires that they lay down, which is the fibers, they will be smart pipes, and new models of internet access and software differentiated networks, which means the entire cloud access, which is dependent on telecommunication now, is going to go through another round of improvisation. Then they will look at connecting the IoT. This is likely to be, again, a very interesting element because for IoT or factories to talk to each other, the near communication and the far communication, this is going to become very interesting and it will reimagine communication. Redefining customer engagement, B2B means business to business, and business to customers would be redefined. And then you will bridge the gap of innovation, which means the innovation cycles will become shorter. See, in the world, I can take an example of the vaccine, for example. Vaccine used to take 20 years, but the innovation cycle, because of the need and the demand, has really come down. And now for the future vaccines also, I'm hoping that the kind of money and the kind of crowdsourcing that they did this time will bring down the time taken for the future vaccines, for example. So the bridging the gap of innovation. Um, what you're going to see here is a connected drone, a connected satellite, a connected balloon, which is again throwing you internet, which will go to the lower population densities, which means the smallest parts of the world. And they would then be connected, and literally they could be as connected and used as a developing market. And this initiative again would have almost this would unlock $2 trillion of an amazing ecosystem and business opportunity purely on telecommunication because the scale is likely to be more. Now, somebody will ask me, why are we saying all these complex things? I don't know if you've read the newspapers. Bharti Telecommunication, Airtel, competing with Geo. So Geo did a fantastic job in 4G, and Geo did a fantastic job in 5G. But Airtel now has gone and bought a satellite company, which is out of UK, and invested with the government of UK and creating this huge layer of satellites, which will then take communication to a different layer. So can you imagine these companies are competing with each other to go to a next level? And that is what this trend is all about. That is what this trend is all talking about. So you will have a connected traveler in automotive. I spoke to you about that before. Of course, autonomous drivers. So Tesla, for example, I don't know if you would have imagined that Tesla shares would be some $500 billion just because it's creating a car which is running on battery. I mean, come on. We had a car being constructed in Hyderabad some 10 years back called Smart, I think. I don't know. I don't remember that name, but it was operated on a battery. It was never valued at so much. But Tesla, for example, has done so much of engineering that there is connected travelers, autonomous driving, trucks you'll be able to drive automatically, just like the trains are driven without drivers in Dubai. And all of this would not be on oil and gas. They would actually be on batteries. And that is the reason that it is valued at $500 billion today. It's not that they have so much sale, but the futuristic model of the business is so strong that it is valued at $500 billion today. So the automotive sector, you will see this constantly change in the next 5 years. And in India, you will see the evolution of the automotive vehicle completely go through a quick curve. In fact, United Kingdoms have said that they will not allow to sell a petrol or a diesel car after, I think it is 2030, if I'm not mistaken, which is like very, very close, very, very close. And there are a lot of companies making investments. There's Jaguar, there's Apple making an investment. If you have an Apple car, this is going to change the world again. You have Volvo making, GM making, and of course, you have Tesla making that. Our understanding of all of these models is very, very interesting. Sorry, very, very important. This is again a very important understanding that all of us should have. We did assisted driving, that means autonomous, but multimodal integration. What does a multimodal integration mean? Multimodal integration seamlessly links all forms of road, rail, ferry, including automobile driving and public transport. So what is happening in the world is that you're going to have a completely connected experience. If you want to go to office and your office is actually maybe 4 hours far, say Mumbai. So every day in the morning, you have to travel from Surat to Mumbai. Now, Surat to Mumbai, of course, you will not be investing 4 hours to travel. So what you do is you will have a bullet train, which would typically take you maybe 45 minutes or 1 hour, assuming. And the bullet train will probably lend you maybe at a Churchgate station or at a Bombay Central station. And you have to go to Pandakula complex for work. You will have a connected assisted driving or a connected motorbike. Hello? Hello? Is somebody saying something? Yeah. So you would have you would be able to pick up a bike outside the Churchgate station, or you will be able to pick up a bike outside maybe a Bandakula station, and you would be able to drive an electrical bike to maybe for a meeting at maybe say a SEBI or an ICICI bank or so and so forth. So that's called multimodal integration. All of these models would be built into one, and the payment will be made at one place. So the payment would be typically made out of a card, an electronic card, and all of that would work. So automotive is again likely to go through a complete change. Let us talk about consumer industry, digital innovation. I'm sure consumer industry is something that we see on a daily basis. There's consumer data flow, value capture, experience. Retail is going through a change. Today, all of us are sitting and calling for our stuff from home, and return is becoming very, very easy today. So e-commerce, of course, all of us are aware about, but this is likely to be even a larger industry tomorrow, which is likely to be $10 trillion. A lot of us think why Alibaba, for example, is doing so well, why an Ant Financials in Hong Kong is valued at $300 billion. It is all of that because the likely expectation of the market is more than $10 trillion in an e-commerce or similar kind of activity. Finally, you have, of course, electricity, and you also have healthcare, which I'll talk to you in a minute. Electricity distribution takes away a lot of wastage today. That's completely going out because of the asset lifecycle management, grid optimization, integrated customer service, and of course, beyond electron. I'm not going to talk to you about this. What I was trying to impress upon you is, and I'm hoping that I've taken enough examples of how these industries are going, because this might just become very heavy for you on a Sunday morning. So let me not try and deep dive on all industries, but I'm sure you will appreciate the fact that real-time supply and demand platforms will come up. That means you're buying electricity, you're storing electricity, and you're dealing in electricity would happen. And the asset performance management for distribution companies or generation companies would become easier because you'll have robotics platform come in. And there is almost a $3 trillion value to be come out of electricity. Healthcare, this is going to be a complete game changer. Everything that is related to patients and hospitals and data is going to go through a complete change. In the UAE, for example, in Abu Dhabi, they are constructing a big data bank and network of our healthcare data, which means the pharmacies, the hospitals, the doctors would exchange data constantly. And you don't need to then have a medical file. Your medical file is virtually saved in the cloud, and that's available to anybody that you want to share with. So this is again going to be transformation in healthcare. Robotics is going to change the way operations are done. It's already changing the way that operations are done. So finally, healthcare is a huge, huge segment, and chartered accountants should honestly look at healthcare because of the pandemic. I think everybody's focus and every government's focus would be healthcare. So if you're able to break this into bits and pieces, you're able to develop apps, you're able to develop software, you're able to develop a business model for healthcare, you're able to develop a connected model for healthcare. I think all of this would become very interesting for us because we understand, again, business processes very well. Logistics is likely to change. Logistics is likely to become crowdsourcing. You know how logistics is likely to happen? Today, you buy a parcel from Amazon, they travel from one warehouse to another warehouse, and then they transfer to another warehouse, and then somebody picks up and delivers. This is actually going to be small packets which will be stored at your home, for example, in the night, and you will deliver it in the morning before going to office somewhere. So it's likely to become like a Uberization. And that is why it is saying it is crowdsourcing. It is, again, going to be a $4 trillion value coming up. So all that I have spoken to you about industries is going to have an amazing amount of impact in the next 5 years in terms of change. We are already seeing media, all of us. Could you have ever imagined? I have not watched a television in the last 5 years. I only see Netflix, and I'm sure all of us here are only on OTT platforms. You never thought so. We always went to theaters, for example. Nobody's going to theaters today, and OTT platforms has suddenly gone up. And this report is not of today. This report is of 2 years back, which means that people always visualize that OTT platform would come up, and that would become so interesting. So it's going to be YouTube will become one of the biggest OTT platforms. What they're doing is they're collecting content and content and content, and they're collecting free content. For example, Coursera would become one of the biggest OTT players in the future. And now coming to professional services. Now, after maybe listening to all of these industries, we would all think through what's likely to happen to our professional services. This is also, of course, likely to go through a complete change. We have to change our business model. We have to change the way that we think professional services are going to run, because competition is not with our fellow chartered accountants sitting in one of your buildings whose next door is also a chartered, and the next door is also a chartered, and you have 200 chartered accountants sitting in the same building there. That's not the competition. Competition is somewhere else, and you have to create a market. You have to create intelligent automation, because again, sitting in Surat does not matter today. You have to have the digital ability, and you should go to the digital framework of the Institute, ICAI, fill up that form and understand how good you are in trying to understand digitalization. You have to empower your talent. You have to empower your articles. You have to make sure that they are digitally connected. Again, I will not too much get into this, and maybe in some other time, but there are a lot of this tools and technologies out there which will augment professionals and their ability to do, think, learn, and feel. There is a solution called Insight Generation. There is a creativity project Dreamcatcher. There is Cognition Watson, which will help you to do AI and help you to get result for your clients. There is a relationship building solutions available. There, it'll build empathy for you, for example. Communication is not very strong for chartered accountants. You should always look out for the way that you change your communication and narrative. Presentation skills are not good, but there are tools and technologies help you to make better presentation. Our ability to organize things are not good. There are tools and technologies to help you to organize things that would make you look like KPMG, EY, Boston Consulting. All of these tools and technologies are available. And unfortunately, the technology is going to disrupt. The biggest disruption is going to be accounts and auditing. The least is likely to be big law, but the biggest and the most impact is likely to be accounting and auditing. So if you look at legal, consulting, accounting and auditing is going to be hit by machine learning. Account and auditing is going to be hit by deep learning. Account and auditing is going to be hit by data science. Account and auditing is hit by smart robots I spoke about, natural language processing, and accounts and auditing is going to be hit by a little bit by virtual reality, a little bit by 3D video telepresence, but blockchain and distributed ledger. So the accounts and auditing is going to be hit by, and it's going to be hit really very, very hard. So all of us here on this platform need to understand, how are we going to gear up to be able to deliver after 5 years? Maybe today we are good, but after 5 years, how are we able to go and deliver this? So I think we need to evolve. We need to make sure that we adapt to changing supply dynamics and alternative marketplaces. Let me not get into the mining litigation data You can really mine litigation data and help AI to understand it. Let me not get into it, but let me just summarize this. Every industry, aviation, telecom, professional services, mining, oil and gas, chemistry and advanced material, is going through digitalization, change in business processes, and technology is getting embedded in all of that, all of the processes. All of this has, you can pick up anything. All of this has opportunity for us. Just pick up anything. Let me try and talk about automotive usage-based insurance. This is my favorite example. Usage-based insurance means that you will be charged only when you're driving a car. So you pick up anything from here, and you will be able to, you pick up anything from here and you will be able to do something or the other in terms of services here. Municipal services, industrial services, even energy management, for example, data to improve experience. You pick up anything from here and you'll be able to provide a service around it. For those who are really excited and for those who want to do really some interesting work, please log on to the World Economic Forum. You will see this report there and you should study this report of what is likely to come. There are going to be new business models. There are going to be new ecosystems. There's going to be a cultural shift, the skills of the future, and data security is likely to become very important. So that's the implication for leaders. And the implication for governments, you will have new regulations come up. That means all the regulations that you see today are going to go away. You will have completely new regulations, taxation, accounting, standards, everything will be new in the next 10 years. And of course, again, security is very important. So government is going to come out with new regulations here as well. So you will have new compliances coming out. So I think the key takeaway is outcome-based business model, access versus ownership, digitalization of businesses, data security and privacy. If we understand these trends which are coming up in the world, we will be able to understand the way that we provide services or the way that you want to reorient your services very, very well. And of course, you have a lot of AI. So my suggestion to all our members would be, let's go back to school. I think just being chartered accountants or being in the practicing field for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years does not help us. I think we have to literally go back to school and we have to do what? We have to kill our practice. We have to think services. We have to automate and productize it. And this is very important. I'm sure you would have heard this from me before. You have to learn. You have to learn to sell what you're trying to build. So this is what I thought. Let me try and impress upon you in terms of key trends which are coming here today. I think the accounting standards, the auditing standards are likely to go through a change. They would become more and more electronic. I think even the way that you impart education and even your examination in the future would actually be all online and intuitive. I think, you know what, chartered accountants are likely to be the next engineers if you really take this seriously. So thank you once again. Let me try and rest my presentation here. I would be happy to take any questions if you have coming in and make this interactive for the next 15, 20 minutes. I know this has been quite heavy in the morning on a Sunday, where typically in Surat, we all enjoy ourselves on a Sunday morning. I'm not sure if this has really provided you with some insights of what is happening in the world, but if it has, and if it excites you, I could be reached at any time, not necessarily today, but I could be reached at any time to have any discussion with you on any of the topic. So back to you, Pooja.
Thank you, sir, for such a wonderful information knowledge sharing session. Any member would like to ask a question, please put the questions in the chat box. Sir, there is a question from Keval Shah. Can you suggest any company who can encrypt video for selling purpose? If you can save.
Oh yeah, I think there are a lot of companies, Keval. I'm not sure why you want to encrypt it. If you want to encrypt a video so that only some people can see it, in fact, I have innovated a company which does a lot of vaulting and encryption. So if you, of course, just do some Google, you can do that. But if you have a very specific use case and you want to do something very specifically, please do reach out to me, and I could probably put you in the right direction. So there will be a video which will be encrypted, and then it will only work in a player that you would want to play, or you could actually play it in any MP4 player by maybe putting a passcode in there. So I don't know what you want it for, but yes, there are a lot of companies who could do this, Cable.
I guess he is a tutor, and
Oh, okay, fantastic. So if you're a tutor, Cable, and you give training lectures, and you only want those people to see your training programs, then what happens is there are tools available in the market which you will have to download a small plugin. So you have to tell your students, please download this plugin. Only if you download this plugin, my classes can run. Otherwise, my course will not run, or my lecture will not run. So I could explain that to you in detail if you want to reach out to me separately. But yes, you could easily do that. There are high-end technology solutions available. Yes, you can give time-limited access for 1.5 view for 3 months. Absolutely. You can control even that, he can only, even if he has downloaded your video lecture, he can only see it for 1 hour, he can only see it for 2 hours, or he can only see it for 5 days, or he can see it only in the mornings, or he should not be able to see it in the night, whatever. All of that is available.
great. Any other member would like to ask question? Keval, I will share the email ID and contact number of sir.
Yeah, I've just put it, but you can share it, and it's also there on the website. It's available.
Yeah. Any other member would like to ask any questions?
There's so much happening in the world, guys. I'm not sure why you don't have questions, because I think every piece of industry is likely to become very interesting. I know that you are pretty happy with what you do in Surat. You guys are all fantastic, rich, doing very well, getting money for your clients. But there's so much to do, especially for the younger generation, of course, that you have to and you should pick up these areas. Otherwise, in the next 5 years, our services become irrelevant.
Sir, there's a question.
Yeah.
सर जैसे अकाउंटिंग ऑडिटिंग ये जो प्रोसीजरल मैटर्स है उसमें सर टेक्नोलॉजी कभी ना कभी टेक ओवर करेगी सर, लेकिन
कभी ना कभी नहीं, अभी 3 साल में टेक ओवर कर लेगी।
3 शॉर्ट टाइम है सर, लेकिन ये
Yes.
जो कंसल्टेंसी है या जो भी सर उसको क्या थ्रेट है? वो तो सर मीन्स अपने थॉट्स है।
कंसल्टेंसी को ऐसा थ्रेट है कि अगर आप इंडस्ट्री से, ओके लेट मी ट्राई एंड पुट इट दिस वे, कि आपके सूरत में एक अच्छा बिजनेस हाउस है जिसका 100 करोड़ का टर्नओवर है, 200 करोड़ का टर्नओवर है, वो आपके पास आता है कि मुझे लाइफ में कुछ नया करना है। तो आपका थॉट प्रोसेस कितना बड़ा है आपका, जो कंसल्टेंसी देते हैं? अगर आपका थॉट प्रोसेस का जो साइज है या जो विजुअलाइजेशन की एबिलिटी है, if it is not big enough, or if you're not able to understand trends which are coming up in the business, and you're not able to correlate the trend and offer a meaningful consulting to him, your consultancy will not be viable. तो हमने पास में क्या किया, छोटी छोटी कंसल्टेंसी की है। हमने पास में पैसा लेके आए हैं, एक फैक्ट्री डालने के लिए और बोला है, या डाइवर्सिफिकेशन बोला है, but these are small pieces. A McKinsey does not do that. A McKinsey will come and rehaul the way that your company should work, and from 200 crores, how can I make that company to 2,000 crores? That will get you a lot of money, and that will only come as chartered accountants move out, deep dive, really understand, and then go into those companies and give them consulting. So consultancy का threat ऐसा है that अगर हम our skills are not in line with what we do, then we will lose this element of consultancy also. So consultancy बंद नहीं होने वाली है, consultancy interesting होने वाली है, but उसके लिए जो अभी knowledge का जो level है, वो हमारी डिग्री से काम नहीं करेगा, is what I'm trying to tell you.
अब रेगुलर अपडेट्स से काम चलेगा।
Regular update नहीं, you will have to really deep dive into one industry, deep dive into one knowledge sector, deep dive into trends which are coming. Maybe talk to people who are an expert, talk to an engineer who's an expert, talk to a doctor who's an expert, and then you'll be able to collaborate and do something.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
If someone is starting a new practice, which area he should focus rather than tax? I think I would always suggest don't even focus on auditing, accounting, taxation. You should pick up one industry that you would want to understand well. You can pick up any industry and you can try and figure out ये industry में अगर ये process है, ये process को आज समझ लीजिए 10 दिन लग रहे हैं, ये process को मैं 2 दिन में कैसे convert करके दे सकता हूँ. सूरत में अगर फॉर एग्जांपल कोई इंडस्ट्री हाउस है जिसको कोई चीज करने में, रॉ मटेरियल प्रोक्योर करने में, मैन्युफैक्चर करने में, डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करने में, रिटेल स्टोर को कुछ करने में, अगर कोई भी प्रोसेस को एक्स अमाउंट ऑफ टाइम लग रहा है, उसको मैं डिवाइड बाय 2 कैसे कर सकता हूँ, उसको मैं ट्रांसफॉर्म कैसे कर सकता हूँ. इफ योर थॉट्स एंड माइंड्स आर देयर, then you will become a fantastic professional in just 2 or 3 years. You will beat your competition left, right, and center. So don't even look at tax, don't even look at GST if you're trying to put up something new. अगर एजुकेशन में अब अगर आप हो, फॉर एग्जांपल लाइक केवल हैज आस्क्ड दैट क्वेश्चन, just recording does not help. You have to create intuitive platform, and that's why Baiju is $10 billion. Why is Baiju at $10 billion? $10 billion. Can you imagine that? It is as good as any Tata Group company. It is as good. आपको पता है इंट्यूट करके एक कंपनी है, क्विक बुक्स, पता है आप लोगों को? आपको पता है टैली है इंडिया में? क्विक बुक्स एक इज ओन्ड बाय अ कंपनी कॉल्ड इंट्यूट. बनाता क्या है? अकाउंटिंग सॉफ्टवेयर बनाता है. क्या बनाता है? अकाउंटिंग सॉफ्टवेयर है. देखा है आप लोगों ने? आपको पता है वो कंपनी की वैल्यू क्या है? अंदाज है कुछ? That company is valued at $120 billion. It is bigger than a Tata Group put together. करता क्या है? अकाउंटिंग सॉफ्टवेयर बनाता है. कहाँ पे टैली है और कहाँ पे इंट्यूट है? सिंपल अकाउंटिंग है, हमको आती है ना अकाउंटिंग, डेबिट क्रेडिट. Who can teach accounting better than us? Right? That is valued at 120, $150 billion if you do a Google here. It sells a small accounting software. Simple. हम तो कभी-कभी क्विक बुक यूज भी नहीं करते क्योंकि काम में नहीं आता है हमारे. Right? पूरा काम में नहीं आता है, एक स्पेसिफिक यूज केस काम में आ सकता है, बट वो उसने क्या किया, छोटा सा एक बनाया, पूरे वर्ल्ड में बेच दिया उसको. दैट इज व्हाट वी नीड टू थिंक. वन स्मॉल एरिया एंड यू कुड जस्ट कन्वर्ट इट इनटू अ लार्ज वन. How to survive in valuation business model and profitable business model? Most companies focusing on valuation. Okay, a very good question. If you're trying to ask me कि प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी इंपॉर्टेंट है कि वैल्यूएशन इंपॉर्टेंट है, तो दो तरीके हैं ऑर्गेनाइजेशन रन करने के. इवेंचुअली तो प्रॉफिट इंपॉर्टेंट है बॉस. बिना प्रॉफिट, बिना कैश फ्लो के नहीं होता है. बट दीज लार्ज कंपनीज दे लुक एट कैश फ्लो कमिंग इन 5 years later. So what they try to do is they try to enhance the top line and they want to change the market. अगर आप ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन सर्विस कर रहे हो, मार्केट चेंज कर रहे हो, तो कभी कभी प्रॉफिट आपको नहीं दिखेगा, आप प्रॉफिट नहीं देख पाओगे. अगर आप जूम का प्लेटफॉर्म बना रहे हो 10 साल पहले, तो आपने 50 करोड़ रुपया डाल दिया और आपने फ्री दे दिया जूम का प्लेटफॉर्म को. प्रॉफिट दिखा कि आपको नहीं दिखा प्रॉफिट आपको, बट अब प्रॉफिट दिख रहा है उसको. $1 billion का सेल हो गया सडनली ओवरनाइट उसका, राइट? एंड ही गॉट सिग्निफिकेंट प्रॉफिट. So what happens is if you're doing disruption, if you're changing the market, profit may not be the element, and the element could be investment and valuation. But if you're not changing the model, if you're not changing the market, then you cannot help it, but then profit has to be your element because the margins are very small. In a disruptive business, the margins are very big. Can you imagine 500 million people using this on a daily basis, paying some small amount of dollars is also a huge bill here. ये गूगल मैप है, आपको फ्री दे रहा है गूगल, एकदम फोकट में बेच रहा है. उसने कितने पैसे डाले होंगे? आपको खाली $1 चार्ज करेगा. $1, $1 if it charges, it will have 100 billion worth of turnover and profit. So that is the way that the model has to be looked at. So you have to look at, आप डिस्ट्रप्शन कर रहे हो, आप इंडस्ट्री को चेंज कर रहे हो कि उसको रूटीन कर रहे हो, रन द बिजनेस कर रहे हो कि चेंज द बिजनेस कर रहे हो. It's called RTB, run the business. CTB is change the business. If you're changing the business, profit may not be a problem. Top line will be a problem. And if you go out, people will value you very, very heavily.
I guess not many questions are been put up. Anyone want to ask any other more questions can please search on his email ID.
Yeah, I'm available at any point in time. My email ID, my telephone numbers are available on the institute website. You're most welcome to raise any questions, even going forward. Happy to respond to you in any of the trends coming up.
As sir is having any other meeting, let's take one last question from Keval. I did Instagram live with you, sir, in many lockdown. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Keval. I remember that now. Yes.
Sir is having another meeting, so let's end up here. I request Ashwin to offer a formal vote of thanks. Ashwin?
Sir, on behalf of all the members of Surat branch of ICI, I really thank you to taking out the time from your busy schedule. Sir, your sessions are always pleasure to hear and always eye openers to us. We really thank you, sir, a lot. Thanks a lot, sir, for this session.
Welcome. Look forward to catch up with you guys soon. I really love people in Surat. We are very, very entrepreneurial. And I think it's always engaging and interesting to talk to all of you all. Thank you so much. Catch up with you soon.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Same.
जय की सिटी में सबको एंटरप्रेन्योर बनना चाहिए बॉस बराबर की नहीं can you imagine how entrepreneurial that guy is and he started from a scratch without nothing in his pockets. Of course he's a great business guy, but he's been so entrepreneurial and his thought process sitting in Surat is so visionary. So you have a role model right next door, boss. You don't have to look too far. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Fully agree with you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.